right, let's talk handstand sprint. What's your take on this? I know you have some key background information.
Well, I mean, for me, I look at this handstand sprint and it's just opposite of running on your legs. And I'm always fascinated by upper body versus lower body. I mean, the legs being the largest muscle group in the body. What can the arms do relative to a movement pattern that we would see while on the legs, and to compare running with your legs and running with your arms? It's always it's interesting to me. And this event, when I look at it that way, I like to dive into some of the details. And in this workout, it really forces me to go back and look at other CrossFit Games workouts and look at performance differences. We also, when we look at historical events, we have to look at any differences in terms of lengths, the conditions that athletes are performing the workouts in, as well as rule changes. So one of the things that a lot of people didn't like in this handstand walk was the rule changes. Historically, in the past, athletes would have to complete a certain minimum distance each time. As example, in the 2016 games, event number 11 was a 280-foot handstand walk. And the athletes had a minimum of every 20 feet section that they would have to cross with their hands. And after they crossed with their hands, they can then stand up, shake the arms out. And then when they started back up again, they had to actually start before the line that they stopped on. Well, in 2020, those rules were gone. It's a free-for-all. And so all you had to do was you had to cross the line on the field. And then when you stopped, you stood up, shook it out, and then you start with your hands basically in the same position in front of the line as you progressed forward. And this, of course, created much faster performances. And so when we go back and we look at 2016 with these rule changes in 2020, it's kind of interesting to do a comparison. And this is where I think Dave's genius came into play. A lot of people aren't recognizing what he was trying to test. And that is, if I take away all the rules and there are no rules, what is the flat out maximal speed that you can run on your hands? And so looking at results in 2016, Matt Fraser, for that 280 meters, he placed second. He was very close to Noah Olson, and his finishing time back then was 1 minute and 42 seconds for that 280 feet. Wow. Noah finished 2 seconds behind him in that event. So remember, they went 280 feet in comparison to 2020, which was 300 feet. But Matt Fraser went in 2020, he went 20 feet further, and his overall time was 22 seconds faster. So in 2020, he did his 300 feet distance in 1 minute and 20 seconds. His finishing time in 2016 was 1 minute and 42 seconds. That is incredible. I mean, what we're talking about here is Matt Fraser on his hands is running at 88 seconds per 100 meters. This is a 21, 22 minute per mile pace on your hands. So yeah, his improvement from 2016 to 2020 in terms of ability is incredible. Let's not discount that. But the fact is what Dave Castro did was, by lifting these rules, he was testing pure velocity, and he got it. He showcased the greatness of these athletes, not by rule limitations that most fans won't understand. He freed up all of that to let them fly. And what he did is he showcased these athletes are actually flying on their hands. Very impressive performance. I actually like what Dave Castro did here, because we saw their true abilities, not limitations by all of these rules. Let's just let them fly. And we saw it, and it was, I was most impressed by it. Anyway, level of performance improvement from 16 to 20, you know, nothing needs to be said there. These athletes all have dramatically improved. And if you want to take a look at it, just go back and you can look at the results. You know, Noah, look at his comparison, but then also, you know, you go into the women's side. When we look at the women in this event, their performance improvements were not nearly as impressive as what the men did. So Katrin, she ended up getting first place in 2016, and Carrie ended up getting just a 2/10 of a second behind Katrin, and they did their 280 feet in 1 minute and 33 seconds. Now, in 2020, Carrie Pierce finished 10 seconds faster. So here she went 20 yards further, and her finishing time was 10 seconds faster, which is impressive. Interestingly enough, Tia, who finished last in the event, she did in 2016, which was a tough event for her, 2 minutes and 52 seconds for that 280 feet. In 2020, she dropped it down to 2:05. So there is an athlete that went over about 47 seconds faster and went 20 yards further. What an improvement that she has made. Really impressive. I got to say, Dave, you did good on this one.